Jason T. Ingram. It's February 22nd, 2017. This is a continuation of a video log project where I'm documenting my life. I'm a multimedia artist, and I've been doing all kinds of artsy-fartsy stuff now on and off for most of my life. And it hasn't gotten a lot of exposure, and part of it is because some of it is really shitty. And then some of it is marketable, and I do get some good feedback occasionally on stuff. But I'm in a community that just refuses to be perfectly honest for the most part. So I don't get a lot of negative feedback unless I have some stranger that's finding something to harass me with. And that's not a very good source to try to determine whether my work is actually worth putting out there. So I just try to put everything out there and see what happens. One of my strategies I'm working on now is that if I just put a lot of content on the web, some of it good, some of it not so good, it's kind of like fishing. I just never know what's going to catch. And sometimes you use a cheap lure and you get a big fish. Sometimes you use a really, really good lure and you throw it out there and it falls off and sinks to the bottom of the river. And that's kind of what being an artist is like too. It's fascinating how I will spend, over a year on a piece of music, and I layer several instruments and 30 or 40 different tracks that I overdub on a song with woodwinds and do a music video for it and spend all this time editing, and I get a couple of views on it, and then I do some stupid video that I shot in a minute and uploaded it, and that gets thousands of hits. You just never know what's going to happen. One of the examples is when I was in college, and this was funny. I don't really even count this college. It's very ironic because I have a background as a teacher, so I'm like the worst student ever, especially if I'm with a teacher that's just full of shit. And so this happened at this one particular school. I was using a piece of software called Final Cut Pro, which is pretty much defunct now and has turned into this horrible spoiled stepchild called Final Cut Pro 10, or I don't know what happened to it. I've pretty much given up on it the last 5 years. But anyways, the old Final Cut Pro was very complicated, so I'm teaching this teacher how to use it and giving him an idea of like, well, instead of trying to transfer all these files from this computer to the other computer to project it to the rest of the class, let's just upload them on YouTube and they'll be there on YouTube anyways. And then when we're all done with it, I'm going to create a playlist so other students can see other people's content whenever they want to, and it'll be up on the web too. Well, we only had 3 or 4 participate, and I think that's part of the reason why, is because only 3 or 4 of them actually completed their project. And this one project, and this was about 10 years ago, how to fix a flat tire. And in 9 years, it's gotten thousands and thousands of hits. For me, I did this fancy music video that had this, this message about technology and culture, and I had green screen, and I had stock footage, and I had all these different layers and compositing and special effects, and it was sensational, and I hardly got any hits on it too. So it's interesting how YouTube in particular, people don't really come here for art. People come here to watch a grandpa screaming at his kids and laughing at it. And, of course, cat videos and how-to videos. So I think I'm going to do some serial shows about stuff that I've figured out on my own or things that people have taught me over the years that seems to work. So those are some of my ideas. I joke and I call them scams just because there's a lot of people that just automatically, and this is a human trait, but I think it's something we could evolve past, is it's so easy to see something as a threat, and then we close our mind off to it. And on the political far right and the religious right, it's obvious. It's very common. What's funny is that on the opposite spectrum, or even people in the middle, do this almost as much. But it's a little different. The methods are a little different. And I think the punishments are a little different as well. And not quite as shaming and abusive, but still very hard to deal with. And that is something that I am calling isolation. And basically, when you disown somebody, that's about one of the worst punishments you could do. Basically, you're telling that person that, you don't know why I'm isolating you, but I'm isolating you probably because I think you are such a threat that I can't even have you talk to me. I can't even listen to your side. And if people have done that to you, that's a form of abuse. And it's even worse abuse when people have isolated you and ignored you and marginalized you and basically said, you belong in this class, I belong in this class, you are away from me, and I'm going to keep you that way. It's a form of abuse even more so when people do that without even warning you or without even telling you why. And that's what I've noticed living in the gay community, the art community, and the progressive type people. It is a hard thing because you never know when it's happening. Sometimes somebody will disappear for a year, and it turns out that maybe they were in a coma and you don't know. So there's this whole mysterious thing about, I don't know why this person disappeared. Typically, there is a whole story that they think of in their head while they do this, and they think that it's like the only, it's a cowardly reaction to fear. And they think it's the only thing that they could do. And after a while, especially when somebody is in my position, and I hate to use this word, but I'm soliciting people. I'm soliciting people a lot. And it's very painful because I'm not selling vacuum cleaners. I'm selling myself. I'm selling the things that are so dear to me, the issues that I've suffered with and lived with, and I'm putting them out there into the world. And I'm asking for people to be involved in whatever way, not even financially. I just want people just to listen to my music, maybe get some hits on some of my videos, and just asking for that. It's fascinating how many people, and I think the majority that I've noticed, immediately put me in this category of, okay, this guy's a threat somehow. He's a threat to my social status. If I enable him at all to keep soliciting people, and there's really no other way to do this because I just can't sit there and expect that I'm going to get all this exposure. And I can't even hire somebody to help market my stuff because they operate a lot of times with the same principle. And unless I'm forking out a lot of dough, which I haven't even got to that point yet. So it is. I'm laughing and I'm crying inside at the same time because it is, I can't describe the feeling of what it's like. And something came to me, and I might do a whole video about the term batshit crazy. Because when you talk about people, and they mention the people in their lives that they have isolated for some reason, that they have seen as a threat, and once they placed that label in their mind that this person is a threat, to the point when I can't even tell them, I can't even warn them. I have to just completely get rid of them, and I will lie to them and pretend that I like them and pretend that I'm going to meet them and then not follow through. And so it's this story that I hear from a lot of people. For instance, in the gay community, I was calling a guy I was interested in dating, and he referred to somebody as his bipolar ex. And when I mentioned, well, that's one of my diagnoses and stuff like that, there wasn't any apologies or anything. So that seems to be the justification that a lot of people have to isolate and ignore somebody, is that they call them crazy. And so what they're saying is this person is suffering from mental illness, but they don't realize that that person is suffering. They're just paying attention to protecting themselves. So that's a hard thing to get through, and I hope I can find some answers about this issue. Thanks.